Hello, today we will be talking to you guys about Sequoia National Park. I'm Josh Dewar.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Libby Shannon.
Introduction. The location is in the southern Sierra Nevada, east of Visalia, California, in the United States. It was established a national park on September 25th, 1890. The park spans 404,063 acres, which is approximately 631.35 square miles. The park is joined with Kings Canyon National Park, and it contains 5 out of 10 of the world's largest trees. Right here is a map, and that's where it's located. There's a picture of it, what it looks like, some little trees. Right here you can kind of see a scale of the trees. Right there, the human, and that just kind of shows how large the trees are in the park. There's another picture. How the park started. The Hawaii colony, which is a colony of Indians, began using the sequoia timber to trade for economic success. And eventually people discovered sequoia trees splinter easy and they were no longer good for trading. And so that's when the trees began to just overpopulate in the park. The National Park Service incorporated the giant forest into Sequoia National Park in 1890. Right here is a cross section of the park. Up top is Kings Canyon, and down here is Sequoia. You can kind of see the difference in the elevations right there. Right here is a stratigraphic layer, and you can see it's got some Dakota Formation, some Carmel Formation, Kayenta Formation, Mokana Formation, and then over there is like a picture of the park where you can kind of see layers in the rock, like right there, which is different shades. Mountains and canyons are formed from the granite rocks. The park is home to over 240 known caves. They're formed from metamorphosed limestone and erosion, and they actually have 2 marble caves, which are the largest marble caves in America. And a landscape of hanging valleys, waterfalls, peaks, alpine lakes, and glacial canyons exist in the park.
I'm going to be talking about the natural geological history of Sequoia, and it's America's longest mountain range. It's located in the Sierra Nevada. It has the tallest mountain in the continental U.S., which is Mount Whitney, at over 14,000 feet tall above sea level. And it also is home to Kings Canyon National Park, where the Goddard and Monarch divides both reach about 13,000 feet tall. This is one of the largest parks in Ohio, in the United States. It's also home to the Moraine Lake, which was formed during the activity of glaciers, and it's also headwaters for the Kiawe River, the Kern River, and it also splits off into 2 forks of the Kings River and donates water to small areas in the San Juan and Tool River watersheds. The glaciation that happened in the Sequoia Park mostly makes up the erosion and the resistant nature to the gigantic rocks that you see in the Sierra Nevada, and that's what created the valleys and the waterfalls, peaks, and the canyons. Kings Canyon is one of the largest canyons there. It lies between the mountains, and they're extremely deep. They're wide glacial valleys. They have tall cliffs. There's meandering rivers. There's a lot of greenery as well, as you can see from the pictures of the forest. And there's waterfalls as well. The Kern Canyon is in southern Sequoia, and it's about 6,000 feet deep. And the other canyons near there range to 4,000 feet deep. The Sierra Canyons show both stream-cut, V-shaped profiles and U-shaped profiles, meaning that they were eroded and created by both glaciers and water. And the water is more than likely glacial runoff and glacial till that created the canyons. Most of the mountains in the canyons in Sierra Nevada are formed in granite rocks. There's a large portion of granite, diorite, monzonite as well, which are formed from molten rock when it's cooled beneath the surface. And The molten rock is a byproduct of the subduction there, which is formed, obviously, when the hot water is subjecting from the ocean floor, migrated, and the melted rock moves upward. There's also a lot of speckled salt and pepper appearance, which is from the quartz, the feldspars, and the micas. The metamorphic rocks there is the most amount of rocks that are found in Sequoia. They're remnants of the volcanic islands that were added to North America before the Sierra Nevada uplift. They're remnants of the metamorphosed volcanic rock. And some examples of the types of rock found there are the schist, the quartzites, the phylites, and the marble. Although it's debated by scientists and geologists, the Sierra Nevada is a primarily young mountain range, about 10 million years old, and it's said to be developed during the development of the Great Basin, which forced the mountains to grow upward. There's evidence of at least 4 periods of glacial advance, and that explains the thick mantle of ice along the mountains. The glaciation and the erosion-resistant nature of the granite rocks make up the large majority of the Sierra Nevada mountains, creating the valleys from the glaciation, the waterfalls, the peaks, the lakes, and most of the canyons. Because most of the mountains are made out of granite, they're extremely resistant to erosion. However, the mountains are being created and uplifted just as fast as they are being eroded. There's a lot of threats to the park and its beautiful natural history because it's been very well preserved by nature itself, but there's a lot of threats from humankind and nature itself that Wes is going to talk about now.
So when visiting Sequoia, you can face several natural hazards, and also you can face some man-made hazards as well. Forest fires, they can naturally happen from dry conditions and lightning, and they can be man-made. Many of the fires here, this is a coniferous fire, like in the forest, in the Sequoia. Next is dangerous rivers, and these are dangerous rivers are the cause of most of the park's deaths and injuries, and these are caused from strong currents that run below the slow surface. Next is air quality, which is another natural hazard. The air quality is measured by an air quality index, which this one goes up to 200, but I saw some that can go up to like 500. I think it's just based on what they want to measure it on. And this is measured based upon the ozone and the air pollution in the air. And most of the time, if there's like a poor air quality, or if the number gets too high, the people visiting would consider rescheduling their visit to a time where it would be better air quality. When you're driving the mountain roads, like when you're visiting or traveling to Sequoia, they warn you to be very careful, and because there's extreme elevations and there's tough weather conditions when traveling. Also, with firearms, although the possession of firearms is legal for people who have the right to carry, they are not allowed to use the firearms within the park, and hunting is prohibited. Also, lightning and sudden storms cause a serious hazard because in California the storms are sudden, and with the dry conditions they could cause forest fires. So they advise you to take shelter and avoid water, trees, and wires when these lightning storms occur. And lastly, fallen objects. They just advise you to be aware that branches or rocks or trees can fall at any time inside the park, so just be careful.
Something I actually forgot to mention from the geology of the park is that Josh mentioned that there's over 200 caves in Sequoia Park, and they're cut into the marble rocks, and the marble is the metamorphosed limestone that create the caves under specific conditions of the metamorphic rock, the fractures, and the space available for the rock to let in enough water to erode the caves to create underground rooms and passages. But The caves in the two parks are the longest in California, the Libram Cave, and it's nearly 17 miles of survey passages. So, sorry, I forgot to mention that.
So in conclusion, we introduced you to Sequoia Park in California, and we gave you brief geologic history, as well as showed you some of the things that have happened in the park. And I told you about several potential hazards that could occur when you visit the park. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Sequoia.
What's the, if you had to describe sort of the geologic history of the park, what types of things were happening to form the rocks in this park?
There was a lot of subduction, obviously, that forced the rock upward, and I talked about the rock coming up out of the ground, and there was a lot of glacials. There were at least 4 periods of glacial advance, and the glaciers and the melting water created a lot of the canyons and the caves there. And I mentioned that the mountains are being eroded just as quickly as they're being created.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with a question?